Have you found yourself in a cycle of not sleeping well and feeling anxious all the time, and you've wondered, how do I break this cycle? An answer to your question is hitting the pause button, seeing that it is our own response to a stimulus that keeps the cycle going, and that when we hit that pause button, we have an option we didn't have before, which is non-response, which leads to the cycle fading away and us finding peaceful sleep and peace of mind. Hi, I'm Daniel, sleep physician turned sleep coach and educator. And in this episode of Insomnia Insight, we're going to see how the cycle of anxiety and insomnia fades away thanks to us finding the pause button. The inspiration from this episode actually comes from a really nice discussion we had, maybe it was 2 weeks ago or something like that, in our Insomnia Immunity Program. Somebody, it was a young man, I'll just call him Fred. I don't actually remember the name, but he brought up this idea of the pause. And he said that when we find that like pause between a stimulus and response, that is really, really helpful. Now, the discussion, led into sort of a territory where I could tell that some in the group were thinking, oh, if I can just immediately find that pause button, I can nip it in the bud and like stop the cycle right away, which is tricky because what we'll see in this episode is that it is actually our attempt to stop the cycle that keeps it going. Nonetheless, this idea of the pause between the stimulus and the response, it gives us an option that we didn't have before. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful teaching, and that's why I want to share with you. Now, let's start it by understanding why this pause is so helpful. And we can start here by seeing that not sleeping much any given night or feeling anxious at any given point, this in itself is not a cycle. It's just an experience that self-resolves, right? We can think of them as like a stimulus, a thing that happens to us. Now, there is a specific response that actually creates a cycle from the stimulus, and that specific response that creates a cycle is actually attempting to stop it, attempting to stop the wakefulness, or attempting to stop the anxiety. And we can see this very clearly when we understand the fundamental truth of sleep, which is that sleeping well, peaceful sleep, is an effortless process. It happens by itself automatically when we're not trying to achieve it. And you can find proof of this very easily. You can just ask that friend of yours or family members of yours who's sleeping really well what they're doing to sleep so well, and they'll spill the secret. They will go, I don't know. And it just shows that peaceful sleep is an effortless process. So when we have any night where we sleep little and we go like, I have to prevent this, can't have this again, then we're going to try to sleep. We're going to introduce effort in an effortless system, and that's going to keep us having sleep struggles. Same thing with anxiety, in a sense that it is the response that can create a cycle from an isolated stimulus or isolated experience. So if we feel anxious at any given point and we go, oh my gosh, this is not good, I have to stop this, that is essentially like trying to tell a friend of ours who has a really important message for us to stop telling us about that. That friend of ours who loves us so much, they're going to be like, oh, you're not hearing this. I got to try to tell it to you even more. I got to try even harder to communicate this with you. The same thing plays out inside us. Anxiety is a signal. It's the way our brain communicates with us. And if we go like, I don't want to hear this, it's going to be like, oh, no, this is really important. And it's going to try to push it harder. And this just shows that it is the response of trying to stop that stimulus or manage that stimulus of wakefulness or anxiety. It's what creates a cycle, because again, the more we try to suppress anxiety, the more of it we have, the more we're going to try to suppress it, and more of it we're going to have. Like, that's a cycle. The more we have little sleep, and the more we try to control it, manage us, the more stress we're going to come, the more we're going to have little sleep, and that becomes a cycle in itself. And sometimes these are intertwined. Sometimes we're told that, oh, you need to sleep more so that you don't become so anxious, or you need to calm down so that you can sleep more. And in this situation, we have sort of like a twin cycle where we think it's really important for anxiety to sleep, and it's really important for our sleep to not be anxious. And the stakes become even higher now. We're going to try even more to manage our sleep, and managing our anxiety, which creates like truly this really difficult insomnia anxiety loop. And again, it's really tricky when we have no awareness of this. We don't understand that it is actually our response to the stimulus that keeps us in the loop. Because we will automatically, subconsciously, like without any reflection, just respond in a way that keeps this going. We're going to respond in a way that maintains the cycle, which leads us to the pause button. What is the pause button here? What is that all about? Well, the pause button is really about taking note of when this response that was previously automatic emerges. So specifically, we can think of a very specific example, which is like this worry thought, which produces anxiety, which is, what if I can't sleep tonight, or what if I can't sleep? This is like a stimulus. It's just something that happens, like a thought that pops up in our brain. When we are aware of that being a stimulus, we can be like, oh, let's see what the response becomes here. How am I responding to this? And we can actually sometimes just observe ourselves responding to it by other thoughts, like, oh no, that can't be true. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Right. So then we can see like, oh, this is the response. I had a thought that was a what if thought, and my response is to try to problem solve this, counteract it, like try to manage it, try to manage thought. And then we're like, oh, we start to understand, right? And we can be like, something else. We can talk about, like, we have we get up in the morning and we had a choppy night, and we can think, oh, this is the stimulus. I had a night where I didn't sleep well. Let's see how I respond to that, right? And now we have hit the pause button. Now we're not in a place where we're just reflexively, automatically responding in a way that keeps the cycle going, but we have awareness. This is the pause button. And the thing is that now we have an option that we didn't have before. And that option is a little counterintuitive, because we can intuitively think that, oh, when we find the pause button, I can choose the response that is the most effective for me. I can choose a better response than what I have now. But see, like, any type of response is going to be an attempt at like managing, controlling, and that's tricky. It's actually what really helps us is the absence of any specific response, meaning an absence of an attempt to have control here. But the beautiful thing here is that thanks to that pause button, there is now an option that we didn't have before. And that option is non-intervention, whatever we want to call it. Some call it acceptance. Sometimes we call it exposure. Sometimes befriending. Sometimes we call it floating. But whatever we call that non-intervention, it is made possible thanks to the pause. Before the pause, that wasn't an option. We would just automatically respond in a way that keeps the cycle going. In other words, without the pause, the option of no response isn't available. And we often try to automatically try to break the cycle. We try to stop the cycle, manage the cycle, control the cycle. And that is actually what keeps it going. Trying to actively break the cycle is what keeps it going. Which leads us to a key question here. How do we find that pause button? How does it become a new reality for us? And I would say the answer is simply to observe yourself. If you're currently going through a difficult time where you're sleeping little, you struggle with anxiety, then observe yourself. Take that look inside and see if you can identify what is the stimulus here and how am I responding to it. And that is automatically going to help you. You can observe your thoughts, your emotion, your behavior. Sometimes our kind of response is some practical, like some very tangible behavior, like, I'm going to do some breathing exercises now, or I'm going to try to take the supplement. And we can see that, oh, this is that type of response to a stimulus that keeps it going. Sometimes our response is more like thought patterns, like we thinking, I gotta clear my mind, or I gotta problem solve, or I gotta Google. Sometimes it's more like not observable behavior that is the response, but sort of more a thought. So just observing ourselves and seeing what is the response here is super helpful, because it gives us that option of no response again. And once you find yourself no longer automatically reflexively responding, non-response has actually already happened. you're already on the path, and that path will lead you to more and more of nothing, more and more of a non-response. And that is how the cycle fades away and no longer keeps you in a struggle, and leads you to more of what you want, which is peace of mind and peaceful sleep. Hope this made a ton of sense to you. Let me know in the comment sections what you had as follow-up questions or just comments in general, and we'll go from there. See you in the next one. Hi, it's me, Daniel, and I hope you found a lot of value in the video that you just watched. Now, I know insomnia can be an incredibly lonely place. You can feel isolated from everybody else because your friends, family members, coworkers, acquaintances simply don't understand what you're going through. And because they don't understand what you're going through, they also can't truly help you. Now imagine a place where everybody does understand you, everybody has shared your experiences and know exactly what type of support and guidance will lead you to where you want to be, which is a place of peaceful sleep, feeling like yourself again, and feeling connected with the world. Such a place does exist, and it is called the Insomnia Immunity Program. And if you think it is time to join, then simply head over to our website, thesleepcoachschool.com, join the program, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side.